Trent Tripple, we made it, baby. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I came here, I was very fortunate to get a tour, like a year and a half ago or something like that. This place looks so different now. It's like all windows, great for natural light, but you can see from the parking lot all the way back to like Bessie, your counter.
That's the idea.
So look, you are the Ada County Clerk. Obviously, this is the election center. I know that you go for transparency, but do you think you pushed it a little bit too far with all the windows?
You can't go too far. Again, we're adopting and embracing radical transparency, right? We want people to trust the process. And if they don't have a full-fledged window into the whole process, it's really hard for some people to trust it. And so that was our impetus behind this whole thing, was to, one, build greater transparency in our processes so the public can see everything that we do. In the room next to us, we've got 59 live streaming cameras that capture every angle in every room in this whole facility. It's something that we take great pride in that transparency. We also wanted to make sure it was a secure facility. So every room in here has dual access required, dual badge access required, so a single person can't get into it. It requires two people to badge into it. We also have all of our folks on the second floor for security reasons. Obviously, there's some people that don't like elections right now, that are sometimes throwing out threatening words and stuff, and it makes our employees feel a lot safer when they're up on the second floor, right? And then obviously, we really examine the process of how we handle things within the warehouse. One of the biggest things is custody, right? We wanted the process in here to be all in-house. Previously, we had some things that were off premise that we would have to transport back and forth. We were really worried about that. Some of our processes with how we handled equipment out to our precincts had some question marks in it, right? And so by doing this, expanding this footprint, we're able to bring all of that inside. So now we have cages that are GPS tracked, dual custody required on all the stuff, all the access to any ballots that we have in-house. Our ballot preparation, tabulation room in here that's air gapped. There's no way to connect to the internet. Windows that you can see all the way around. So if someone physically wants to come see it or watch it from the comfort of their own home on video, they can. It's just, look, we want people to stop talking about how we run elections and start talking about who is winning elections and are they doing their jobs. That's where we really want to focus the energy.
That is... Okay, thanks for all that.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of blown away that everybody can see from like the parking lot, everything's going on. So if you, with your streaming cameras, I could literally just log on and watch people working here. I presume you don't have audio, but like you could just...
It's a fishbowl.
Dude, that's wild. So with all of this, my concern with some of these things is that no matter what the information presented to people, they're like, yeah, but it's always like, you can come in and watch, you can come in and do whatever, and you'll have some number of people that will always say, yeah, but. They're like, what about the internet that you can't track? And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. But for other people that have reasonable consideration or concerns, and everybody's concerns are reasonable, but for people that actually want information, what has been the response from them in like, hey man, you can watch it on TV or on your computer at home, you can watch it on your cell phone, you can stand in front of the windows and bring a hot dog and like watch us do it here. Like, have people been reassured by this?
Overall, I think the vast majority of people in Ada County think that elections are being run properly. With things like the ballot verifier and our efforts here in transparency, most people go, okay, I'm not worried about that anymore. But like you said, there's a handful of people that no matter what we do, they're always going to create some sort of friction and have some doubt. And that's okay. That's democracy. That's the world we live in, right? And it's been the world we've lived in from the beginning of time, right? There's always going to be skeptics. There's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be people that are poking at the system. And we welcome that, right? We know we get better when someone comes and critiques us and asks us to see, everything in our processes and they give us feedback, right? They may not agree with us in the decisions that we make or the laws that we have to follow, right? Because generally speaking, we have to follow the laws. There's very few things that we get to decide on our own on how we do things here in elections. It's all based off state code, right?
Sure.
But how we present that to the public is what we get control over, right? And we decided, the commissioners supported us, that we're going to go down this path of just going, look, we're not hiding anything. There's nothing here to hide. If you have a question, come in, talk to us. Some of our biggest skeptics who came in and said, we don't trust the system, we said, well, come work with us. Be a poll worker, be a chief judge in a precinct. And as they do that, they start to go, wow, okay. We always have the what ifs, the one-offs,
Sure.
right? What people don't understand is the layered amount of security that we have from beginning to end, right? Yes, I can pull one thing out and cherry pick this one thing and say, by itself, this looks like a weakness. But when you plug it back in and you see how it's connected to 10 other security measures and 10 other processes that would all have to go bad in order for that one thing to really cause us problems, then they start to see the whole picture and they go, oh, okay, yeah, Chinese satellites, right? But Chinese satellites is just one thing, right? We have 20 things that would prevent something like that, if it even were ever capable of disrupting us, from checking, auditing, looking at all the security measures. It's really hard to influence our system and our process. What's not as hard to influence, and this is where your game comes in, is when people are influenced by what they hear, right? Where are they getting their information from? Who are they trusting? We want to be someone that they trust, right? And the only way we can get there is by being radically transparent, right? Now, not everyone's going to trust us. That's just the nature of the beast. But we think we can get the vast majority of people in Ada County to go, okay, there's nothing there. I'm comfortable coming in to vote, whether I request an absentee ballot, whether I vote in person earlier, or whether I vote in my precinct on election day. I know my vote's going to be cast correctly. I know it's going to be read correctly. And then if I wanted to, I could come in and see every part of the process and ensure that it's all working properly.
What with the ballot verifier and the capacity for individuals to be able to self-audit, right? Mm-hmm. Either audit the entire election or just make sure that their individual ballot was counted correctly and everything was fine. Have you had a decrease or a change in skepticism where people are like, okay, usually I would call every single election and say like, hey, I'm worried about this, but now you're like, hey man, that's totally fine. Go check this out. Are people kind of self-regulating with that, or are you?
There's been a lot of that. Our level of public records requests for ballot images, for one thing, have gone drastically down because now they're all online, right?
Sure.
We don't get a lot of questions or calls anymore about what are you doing about this? What are you doing about that? I think we've done a good job of explaining our processes, letting people know what we're doing. Now the vast majority of calls that we get are, where do I vote, right? Who's on the ballot? Right? How can I find out more information on who's on the ballot? That's really self-assuring, right? To go, all right, we're moving the needle somehow in that direction.
Do we have any judges running in Ada?
There's no judges in this November election.
Let me ask you, County Clerk Trent Tripple, how do I get information on who to vote for a judge?
Right.
Like, this has got to be one of the number one things. It's like, how do you know?
Yeah. The judges are a slightly different animal in that you're voting to retain them, right? They're not necessarily running against some other judge that you're comparing them with.
Yeah,
right?
But how do you know whether to retain or not?
So there's been cases in the past where a judge has gotten 3 DUIs.
Oh.
Right?
That's bad.
That's out in the public.
Okay.
Right? And the public that can then go, wait a second, do we want this person judging us when they can't even get their own stuff straight, right? That's where in the media, they play a significant role in that piece, in that they go, something's not right here. This judge probably shouldn't be retained. So that gives the public the option to go, no, we want him out, right?
So I have to look for the judge with the Deweys.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
other options.
Listen,
You can, there are public records on judges' performances and evaluations on them at the Supreme Court.
Oh.
So if someone is really interested, they can call and go, hey, is there anything on Judge so-and-so? And they'll be able to tell you, no, there's no formal complaints, there's no investigations going on, any of that stuff. So they should be able to tell you that.
That's actually, so one thing that I'm really concerned about with the primaries coming up, obviously in 26, is we saw an ungodly amount of money dumped into Idaho in the 24 primaries, right? And again, I was kind of newer to this game, so I was experiencing it for the first time. But, you know, obviously, Phil McGray, the Secretary of State's working really hard to not, he can't stop, you know, spending. But he said, look, if we could just help people understand where the money's coming from, then people can make their own minds. And if you want to side with the like North Carolina fondue king who's dumping $2 million into Idaho, that's totally fine. You do you.
Yeah.
But like, you got to know it's the North Carolina fondue king. Another thing, and so to that end, essentially doing a little bit of upfront legwork during that primary session coming up is this plan where I think the Secretary of State's office is considering scanning, like getting PDFs of all of the mailers and things like that, and then having information about where they are. What I've been considering is doing like a weekly mailer dump and just doing one video. It's like, this group is out of Bing, and like, you know, give some information.
Absolutely.
But I think the judge research would also be a really valuable thing next time there's a magistrate decision, because then if you're saying all I have to do is call the Supreme Court and say, or whoever, and say, hey, have there been any actions or complaints against this person? Then you could just be like, hey, look, all 4 of these people, no complaints at all. They've been on this long, in this amount of time. This guy's had like 4 complaints.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what they were, or give whatever information is provided, but then you just move on from there. So that's probably like the best way people can get information.
Very possible.
Okay. You have been going around the country, you know, obviously in your spare time, talking about ballot verifier, right? Like, what are other states' responses to it, and are other people trying to adopt it, or is there like a better system somewhere else where people are like, okay, ballot verifier is good, but Trent, like, what about this other thing?
Yeah, what we've seen is there's a lot of people that are very interested in. They're starting to adopt it. It's expanding. It's in 16 states now, from the start here in little old Ada County.
Wait, did you guys piloted the original?
We were the first ones,
right?
and we developed it with our contractor, who was awesome.
Did you get any piece of this copyright? Come on, man.
No,
Former county clerk Trent Tripple up on the hill in a mansion.
our motivation was, again, just the transparency. We wanted to go after this, right? So no, it's being very well adopted. The problem is there's some states that have laws that prohibit you from posting ballot images online.
Ah, gotcha.
And so I think that's starting to soften a little bit as people feel more comfortable with that. There is also a concern about PII, right? Almost every state, if I'm correct, has a constitutional right to a private ballot. And so by posting the ballot image, if there's something on there that can identify a person as this is their vote, right? We don't want that happening either. That's an extremely important part of our process, right? We remind voters as they vote, don't put anything on here that can personally identify you. If you're going to want to mark your ballot in a way that you can go find it later, just make sure it's only you that knows what you did, right? Don't write your name on it. Don't sign your name on it, right? That's some of the struggles that have been happening in other parts of the country where they've tried to we this, right?
Gotcha.
They're concerned about, oh, we're going to, out people on how they voted if we post these images.
Sure.
And, we had that concern when we started, but that hasn't materialized at all as we've done this, right? Again, it goes to well, what if this could happen, right? And you're like, well, it might happen, right? But we're going to try to mitigate it as best as possible. But the overarching emphasis behind this is transparency. It's not to like go after somebody, right, that's voted a certain way. And in fact, the thing that has really caught fire with a lot of folks is the ability to see voter behavior, right? You can now see that there's a lot of voters that will vote for both a Republican and a Democrat, right? And that's powerful. That's really powerful when you see that and you start to go, man, maybe I'm missing something, right? It's something that a lot of people are very interested in trying to project in their communities to go, this doesn't have to be us against them all the time, which is a refreshing conversation to have.
How common are monolithic voters? Like if I just go straight down with R or straight down with D or whatever.
I can't remember which election it was. We did analysis of it a little while ago. In one of the previous elections we ran here, 27% of Republicans voted straight Republican.
So that's 73 then are like, nah, man, it's a mix. Or you have obviously not even Republican versus Democrat
Unaffiliated.
candidates, but you have, well, no, issues like voting for a bond.
Sure.
Right. So if somebody's like, oh, Republicans are fiscally conservative, you shouldn't be voting for this bond or this levy, they're like, that's a yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's interesting. With identifying marks on ballots, okay, you told me, like, I think a year or two ago, you're like, take a $2 bill and write the serial. And I was like, first off, I don't carry $2 bills, Trent. I was like, thank
I'll get you one.
Yeah, okay, great. Like, put a smiley face or Bart Simpson head or whatever you want. But you guys have, I've never understood the watermark. So you guys have a watermark on the ballots. Can you explain that to me? And that's part of like, that's essentially the original some of the original currencies were in the United States were like leaf currency. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but there was essentially a ironed on image of like a leaf with all the veins and whatnot going through it that made it hard to counterfeit, right? Is that the nature of the watermark?
This watermark that we use, and for this year, it's the Sasquatch, right?
Okay.
So for this watermark, it's just to identify official ballot. And it's an additional security measure rather than just having something that says official ballot, which would be very easy to copy, right? The watermark you can see is a different color. So you're going to have to multi-color it, right? So if you go and copy a color of it, there is ability to kind of see the differences, the type of paper that we use also. So again, it goes to the, well, what if someone could fake the watermark? Yeah, they might be able to fake the watermark, but they won't be able to fake all the other stuff that goes along with it, as well as how do you get access to this ballot and how do you process the ballot and who, the custody of the ballot and everything else, right? So there's probably someone that could duplicate this and make it look very similar. But we also have barcodes on the side, right, that identify what ballot this is and all that, and those are really hard to duplicate, right?
Okay, explain the barcodes to me. Do they identify individual ballots or do they identify like batches of ballots? Like
Ballot
this is,
type.
okay.
So
for a
this is a
specific precinct?
1417
Gotcha.
-G, right?
Okay.
And so when it goes through the scanner, it reads that barcode and goes, oh, I need to be looking for these boxes, and I know that those boxes are associated with this name, and if there's a mark in it, then that's a vote for that person.
Okay, and so that barcode is also like technically difficult from a copying mechanism?
I mean, you could copy this, right, through a copy machine, and you'd have the barcode, you'd have the watermark and all that stuff. But then all the other procedures that are in place to determine how many ballots we've issued, how many ballots have been scanned, right? Where did they go? The security procedures at the point of contact where you're actually feeding the ballot in. So if someone walks up and tried to feed 2 ballots, the person standing there would be like, you can't feed 2 ballots,
Yeah.
right? Even if you had a copied one, right? There'd be no way for them to get through those types of things. And so it's a multi-layering of all of those things that help us ensure that we're doing things right.
So within, let's say that 1417G ballot, let's say you have 150 of that type of ballot. Now, mind you, you're going to have to say I'm a person who finds great pleasure in trying to cheat Ada County election.
Sure.
Like, okay, I want to manipulate this election. First, I have to figure out which ballot I'm going to copy to like feed in additional. Okay, and the problem that I'd run into is how many different ballot types do you have in Ada?
353 for this election.
Okay, so I'm going to have to figure out, okay, which of the 353 ballots do I want to try to increase the vote for one person or another person? Okay, so say I come up with 10 of the 353. I first have to find a way to get those things in advance. Is that actually, so let's say I find 10 people in those 10 different areas and okay, so I'd have to actually physically get a hold of their ballots. So they would have to like request an ad. Let's say I have 10 friends and they're like, they're with me. We're like ride or die. All right. So I have these 10 friends in the 10 different areas that are going to get 10 different ballots and they all request absentee ballots so that they can physically get them. Because once I go in person, I can't like leave with a ballot, right? Okay, great. So I have to get an absentee ballot. How many people get absentee ballots like in general? Is it like 20% or 30?
20%.
Okay, great. So only 20. So it's a small number of people. Or smaller, right? So I get those 10 ballots, then I go copy them. I get the barcode right, I get the Sasquatch right, I get the paper type right, and I'm like, okay, here's my chance, all right? And I fill in, you know, we collectively, the Idiot 11, fill in this stuff, and then we deliver, I don't know, I don't know how many would we even have. Okay, let's say we deliver 50 or 100, Okay, so I deliver 100 of these individual ballot types. Like, what are the number of these 1417G ballots that are printed? Is it like 500 for that precinct or 1,000 or?
We know exactly how many we print because there's different printing mechanisms, right? So like if you request an absentee ballot, we know that there was a ballot that was printed specifically for that absentee request. If you were to come in and early vote, we will print on site your ballot right then and there.
Oh,
so there's
no. So then I would have to be in it, like literally expanding the very limited number of absentee ballots that went out. Okay, wait.
You see all the checks in here, right? Like,
So
I know I sent 100 absentee ballots out. If I got 120 back, then I know, hey, there's something wrong here. And then I start looking at every single individual who sent me a ballot back, right? And then I start checking their signatures. And I start checking, did they request one? If someone requested one and I got 2 from one, first off, I wouldn't be able to count 2 because there would be 2 ballots from one person, right? One of those would be rejected, and then the sheriff would come knocking on the door going, why did I get 2 ballots from you, right? So we can see all of that stuff happening real time.
Okay, so in effect, if let's say there are 1,000 people within this precinct, and 20% of those people request absentee ballots, and I'm in there, and I'm like, all right, we're gonna add in 50 additional ballots here, right? Because we'll swing the vote by 5%. That's what we're thinking. Okay, it's a close race. But the problem is, you only sent out 20. And if 250 come back, instantaneously red flags go off. You're like, we only printed 200.
Exactly.
How did we get 250? And then you start going down, where is the duplicate? Because if, let's say, Susie, I send in a ballot for Susie, because I've faked Susie's ballot, and Susie didn't even request an absentee ballot, then automatically, so if it's like, okay, 200 people requested, but 250 people sent them in, then you just figure out who are the 50 people that didn't request an absentee ballot. And then you take those right away off, and you address, okay, you go talk to Susie, like, did you send this in? Like, is this your signature? Like, all these things. But those are automatically off. That's if I take 50 people that didn't request the absentee ballot and vote for them.
Yeah.
The alternative is we find 50 people that did request an absentee ballot, and how would we know for sure? But we find 50 people that do, and we send in these ballots under those 50 people's names. So you get 250 ballots, but only for 200 people. That matches the number of people that requested it. Then you have the 50 people who had duplicate votes, and then you start identifying, okay, which of these signatures match? Like, okay, this one's a match, this one is absolutely not, this is getting thrown out, or these are both matches, let's go talk to Brian, because why does it look like Brian signed both of these and voted twice? So just getting this to copy it, and then once you have a copy, even if you did the copy right, it's like near impossible to get those 50 counted, because they're either gonna have to be 50 people that didn't request an absentee ballot, or 50 people that did, and then you're gonna have duplicate ballots, which is gonna be bad to get it counted too. Okay, so it's problematic.
It's very problematic.
Okay.
On in-person voting, the same thing, right? We have 100 people check in with their IDs. We print 100 ballots, right? If at the end of the day I have 101 ballots that are scanned, then I've got a problem.
Oh, because okay, so you don't even print them ahead of time. It's like, look, you come in, it's like Burger King. They don't cook it till you order it, right? So it's like you come in, you're like, hey man, we had 100 people come through, we had 100 registered voters, they showed us their ID or whatever what mechanism they identified, passport, whatever. Do you guys still do the affidavit?
We do have the affidavit capability.
Okay, so bottom line is, and the affidavit is on top of the registering to vote, and the registering to vote.
You can't sign an affidavit to register.
Right. You need an Idaho issued ID or a government issued ID, and you will not take out-of-state driver's licenses, student IDs, or anything of that nature.
Nope.
So once I register to vote through the whole identification process, then I come in and I identify myself, however, at the election center. Then you guys print them out as they are required. Mm-hmm. So you have 100 that come out, and you know exactly then how many should be counted at the end.
Right.
So it's very hard to sneak one in there. Okay. All right. So walk me through once you get them collected into the box at the polling location. So obviously the identification just right out of the blocks when you're collecting them from an absentee. Do you store them all, by the way, before when you absentee ballot? When they come in, do you guys open them on the spot, or when they come in, do you wait until like election night and then you start opening them?
By law, we're not allowed to open them prior to and process them prior to election day.
Okay,
So-
and by election day, absentee voting is done, right? So you
Well,
will have.
I can get an absentee ballot up until 8 o'clock on election day.
Gotcha.
So if I have your ballot in my hand by 8 o'clock, we're counting it, whether it's absentee or in person.
Okay, and that allows you to figure out what valid votes are or not, or if you have a glut of votes somewhere or not. Okay, great. So all of it's sorted. But when I go to my voting location and I vote and it goes in, what happens to that? So first off, that ballot's stored under lock and key once it's there to be audited later if necessary, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what happens?
So if you're voting in person, whether it's early in person, like at one of our early voting centers, right, or you vote on election day, when you hand mark your ballot, right, you're going to put it into the scanner, and when it scans it, it's going to capture the image on a secure V drive that's in that machine, right, and then the paper ballot goes through the scanner into a ballot box that's underneath. We collect those ballots every day from early voting, right? And then on election day, obviously the precinct ballots will all come back here in secure ballot boxes with seals that are locked under dual custody, okay? We get all those ballots back into here. They are the official record. However, the image that was captured through the scanner, either at early voting or on election day, that's what comes back through a V drive, a very secure, hardened,
Like data stick.
Yeah.
Got it.
And we pull those out of the machines when they come back into our warehouse, and then we plug them into our count system.
And you physically have to pull them because these things, the counting
no
machines there's no ability to like Bluetooth,
nothing. It's
internet
a physical interaction that
Gotcha.
we take out that drive, bring it in here to the air-gapped room that we have in here, plug it into the computer, and then it downloads all of those images from that precinct or from early voting, and that's what does the count. If during any of that process there is ever a doubt whether or not that machine worked properly, or for instance, we get a mismatch, right, of like this many people registered and this many votes were scanned in that machine and they don't match, then we can do what's called a bypass. And we will not take that V drive out of the machine and we won't plug it into count. We will actually go find the ballots that were scanned in that precinct or early center, right? And we'll bring them in here and we will actually physically scan them in here to get that actual count. So again, that's a redundancy, a backup, a fail-safe. So that's what happens with in-person voting. For absentees, your absentee will come back to us either via Dropbox or it will come back via the mail, right? And we'll get it in here, we'll process it, we'll send it through Bessie, our machine, which captures that image, reads it, receives the ballot, make sure that we're receiving a ballot for someone who actually requested a ballot, right? And then we go through a signature verification. Once all of those security steps are in place, right? Then on election day, we pull those ballots and we scan them here locally, right? So only valid absentee ballots that signatures have matched, someone requested it, we got it back, and it matched all of those security protocols. Then do we take that ballot and we scan it? If during that process someone doesn't sign it or a signature doesn't match, then we go through a curing process, right? And if we have time, we'll call that voter and go, hey, we received the ballot from you. We know you requested it. We got it back, but it's not your signature. And they go, oh, well, I never sent my ballot back in, right? So obviously that's where we catch that and go, well, then that's not happening. What happens most of the time in those cases, though, is we call and we say, hey, we got a ballot back. It's not your signature. And they go, oh, I think my wife and I switched envelopes. And then we pull up their ballot, which may or may not have been processed or was also rejected. And we go, oh, yeah, the signatures matched. Well, we're not counting these ballots because obviously they're the wrong signatures. If you would like to come in, we'll spoil these ballots and you can vote and sign it correctly. That'll be a curing process for that instance.
Yeah, and you do them the courtesy of not sending the sheriff.
We don't send the sheriff in those cases.
It's like,
right?
listen, I'll do you a solid. Don't you worry about Matt Clifford. But
there was a case, though, where a mother signed a ballot for her kid who was off to college. And we contact that college kid and we go, did you send this ballot back? And I have no idea that I sent a ballot back. I know I requested one, but it probably went to his home because he didn't update his mailing address, and his mom attempted to sign it for him, and it didn't match his signature. And so in that case, the sheriff did make a
house call.
A
house call. Oh my God. Dude, it's too much. Yeah, so bottom line is once you start collecting them, you upload the information or you physically count the ballots. Once you get the absentee ballots, you go through the rigorous verification process, and then you count them locally. All of that information is aggregated, isn't it, into this room?
In this room, yeah. Okay. This is the tabulation room.
And all of these systems are, I can't remember, you told me like a year or two ago, none of them are connected to the internet. None
of them have the capability to even connect to the internet. And there's no internet in this room. There's no Wi-Fi signal. It's just, this is an air-gapped room. So if a machine isn't working properly, we actually have to ship it back to the manufacturer for them to fix it. We can't open it up. We can't mess with it.
Oh, these are locked box tabulating machines?
These are locked box tabulators. We don't mess with them at all. They come directly from our contractor, who's Hart Intercivic, and they're the ones that put it all together and ensure that it doesn't have Bluetooth, there's no connectivity to it.
So I've heard people that have anxiety around this. So like, what if somebody just added a Wi-Fi thing into the computer? So you guys physically can't even open these computers?
No, it'd invalidate them, and we'd have to.
So that security mechanism, that protocol essentially extends all the way back to Hart Manufacturing. So you have to have confidence. Hart Manufacturing then has a level of security that's like, no, man. Once we seal this guy, it never gets opened unless we're the ones opening it. And it just goes away, does its job, and then comes back if there's ever a problem.
That's correct.
Okay, so once you aggregate all of the information here, then that goes to like one V drive, right?
Well, there's multiple V drives. If you're watching count on election night, right, our posting of the results, somewhere around after 8 o'clock, you'll get the first results, which are generally the majority of absentees that we've scanned that day and all of in-person early voting. What we haven't got yet back is the election day precinct numbers, because they're coming back physically from the precincts that night, and they're not here right away at 8 o'clock because they're just closing the polls.
Wait, what? I don't know what that is. What's a precinct number?
A precinct location, like your physical location, the precinct that you live in where you vote in person in your neighborhood.
Okay.
So those polling places, we don't have that information because we haven't got those machines back yet at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
But during the election day, we can upload all of the early voting.
That's why everybody sits around. It's like, oh, early voting stuff is up. And then they make projections about like, okay, well, early voting usually leans right, or early voting usually leans left.
Exactly.
So this means X, Y, or Z.
Same with absentees, right? They try to make these projections and predictions and all that kind of stuff with it. But we continue to get absentees processed throughout that day because we have drop boxes that fill up that day. We have a last run at the post office. We have someone physically at the post office at 8 o'clock, and we go, whatever you got is us. Now we take it into custody and we'll go process it. So it takes us an hour or two once we get it to process those. So there still are absentee numbers coming later in the evening, but the majority of them we've already processed throughout election day and post at 8 o'clock. But then precinct results start coming back. In-person precinct results start coming back. And that's why, every 30 or 40 of them that roll in here, and we in-process all the equipment into this facility. Those V drives come into this room. We pull them, right, and we plug them into count. And then we start aggregating those. And so like every 40 minutes maybe, we'll get 30% of the precincts coming back in.
Gotcha.
And then that V drive, once we pull it out of count in this room, goes behind me into the command center, where they plug it in and we upload it to the Secretary of State's website and we upload it to our website. Once that V drive goes through that door, it never comes back. So we're not like moving back and forth V drives to our system. That's why, again, it's air gap, the security measure for making sure nothing gets onto these systems in here.
So once the V drive goes over there and you send the information to Secretary of State, I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine about a year or so ago. And he was like, yeah, but how do you know the information that's leaving Ada County is the information that the Secretary of State's office gets? And I was like, well, I didn't know, so I'm asking you. But I was like, well, I'm pretty sure they can just pick up the phone and say, hey, did you get 10? because my screen says 10. What's your screen say? And they're like, so you guys can just confirm, hey, we just sent you, 10 for this and 20 for that. And they say, yes, Roger, 10 for this, 20 for that. Yeah. Good stuff. Hang up.
We also, in that process, before we upload the results, we look at them, right? And we go, oh, we're about to upload these publicly to our website and to the Secretary of State's website. So we know what those numbers are. If we were to post them on our website or post them to the Secretary of State's website, and all of a sudden they were different from what we had just reviewed before we posted it, that would be an immediate red flag. And we'd go, oh, those results, something's happening. Someone's messing with our online stuff. And we would send out a notification to people saying, don't look at that stuff right now. We'd try to figure out what it is, but we'd have another way to post official results.
Sure. And again, because you guys physically have all the ballots, and as you're moving to the internet capable area, you can obviously have like a paper readout. Like, I don't care what you think is going on the internet. This paper isn't changing between this room and this room. So you can sit down and say, like, this says 10, that says 10. And if that ever says 11 and this says 10, it's all over because I know this 10 is correct.
Correct.
Man, these are wild times. God bless it. So bottom line then, you guys have gone through this huge revamp and reconstruction of the election area just to bring attention back to, look, this is it. Like, this is our election system. I mean, this is my election system. It's your election system. There was a big concern, obviously, in 2020 around election, integrity. You know what's so amazing about that? A lot of people that I've spoken with in Idaho are so anxious about, or not, let me rephrase this. The people that I've spoken with in Idaho that were anxious about the 2020 election, they were so against elections in general, but I thought Idaho voted the exact way you wanted. They're like, well, yeah, our elections are fine. It's like, why is it that you always think it's like, why is that, right? Like, you're happy with your election, or people were unhappy and they're like, Idaho elections. I'm like, I don't understand. If you think Idaho elections are bad, how come they voted the exact way that you thought Idaho would vote? And every time I ask them that, they just like stop cold turkey. But, but bottom line is, in spite of all of that and your confidence, you guys redid this whole thing, this whole area. Because again, when I saw it like a year or two ago, it was, walls, it was definitely darker. You guys got a lot of light in here now. And it's just a completely different experience walking in here. And that's to offer the Ada County residents and voters just the capacity. It's like, look, man, this is it. This is what we got.
In this day and age, information is powerful, and facts sometimes get set to the side, unfortunately. What we wanted to do is combat some of that bad information out there with as much facts and transparency as we could muster, right? So we're grateful for people that come in and look at this and then carry that story outward to everyone else to go, look, I've been there. There's windows all over the place. There's 59 cameras, right? I've watched their processes. I've looked at their processes. I've voted. I've worked in a precinct on election day. I've come and worked in the warehouse on election night, helping open absentee ballots. All of those people now can go out to the community and go, no, look, let's stop having this conversation about how to vote, right? Let's start having the conversation about who's on the ballot, right? And that's a powerful thing.
Don't you think that's going to require an incredible participation for people that lose elections to stop saying that the election was cheated?
For sure, and I don't know that we'll ever get past that now. It's become pretty entrenched, right?
It's like an American institution.
Yeah,
just to
those
say,
that
like,
lose are going to try to find ways to explain why they lost, right? We'll always deal with that on some level, right? As things swing back and forth or whatever, we're going to deal with those questions. And I'm fine dealing with those questions. I just bring them in and let them see. And, everyone's entitled to their opinion, right? Not everyone's entitled to be right.
Yeah. You, and again, I know, it's a working day for you, but you had I think you told me in the last time we talked, didn't you have somebody who wanted an audit originally, and then you're like, yeah, look, I understand you're entitled to an audit, we'll totally do it, but just check ballot verifier first, because you can see all the ballots right there, and I know you're worried about it, but like, go check. And she came back and said, yeah, scratch the audit. Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah, it was a recount, right? So it was a 2-vote margin, right, that she had lost by. And she had heard from friends and others that were her support group saying, hey, there might be something fishy here. You need to go, request that recount. And she would have been entitled to a free recount. She wouldn't have had to pay for it because of the vote margin. And I said, we're happy to do that. It'll take time. It'll take money from Ada County to be able to pull off this recount. But we've invested in this system called the ballot verifier. Would you please at least take a look at that to tell me if there's something that really concerns you? And she did. And she called me back later and said, I've looked at it. I don't need a recount. So that's powerful, right? When you have, as a citizen, as a candidate, as anybody, that access to all of the information that we have, all of the actual ballot images, how all the machines read those ballots, right, side by side, and can look for yourself and go, yeah, there's nothing here. That's powerful, and we hope that that continues to be the case. We post that prior to the contest period being over, and so people can look at it themselves before they run out of the options to be able to contest the election.
Yeah, I spoke with Christina Glasscock from Twin Falls County Clerk, and she's had experiences. I'm going to go talk to her. She's had experiences with people like big kind of like national election denial people. That one thing this guy was telling her, apparently, and I'm going to chat with her more about that, we need to eliminate county clerks and do all elections in parks. I'm like, that is a wild proposition. And apparently, I'm like, yeah, what would happen if you like eliminated the statewide, voter registration? She's like, you know what happens? Then people register in multiple counties and screw up all the votes. It's like you need a uniform, statewide registration system that talks to each other so that if somebody's up in Kootenai County and they try to mess around in Canyon County, they're not going to be able to do it. I'm like, damn, man, people have thought about this. But anyway,
it's the age-old question of local control, right? There's a lot of people that don't like the federal government messing in the state's business, right? There's a lot of people that don't like the state messing in the county's business, right? It's pretty obvious when you look at polls that the level of trust in local government is much, much higher than it is for someone at a state level or a federal level, right? And that's because we represent our neighbors, right? We're here doing the work. We live amongst them. Our kids play together. Right, we have a lot of vested interest in making sure that this works properly, right? And that also builds the level of trust because they go, well, my neighbor's the one that runs elections, right? I know him. I've had a conversation with him, right? I don't know anybody that runs federal stuff, right? And so I think it's important for us to, again, as Idahoans and as Americans, to remember that local control all the way down to the individual citizen. That's where the power lies. It doesn't lie with some, distant person whose name I recognize but who I've never met, right? To be able to control my life and to control the outcome of a lot of things that mean a lot to me, right? I always like to say what happens in your house is 1,000 times more important than what happens in the White House, right? Yeah. So let's keep local control where it needs to be and be able to run elections the way we want to run here locally, within the county, within the state. To get rid of a lot of those things that apparently that gentleman's talking about would require constitutional change, because this is all embedded in the Constitution.
Yeah, look, man, I have yet to actually sit down with people. And again, I'm not an election expert. I just have the good fortune of chatting with you and other people about it. But I have yet to sit down with people that come up. Here's one. The closest to like a reasonable objection or issue that I've heard was somebody saying, well, the problem is if somebody has a vacation house in a different county, they could register in that other county. I'm like, okay, but they can't register in both, right? And he's like, yeah, so you can't double vote. I'm like, okay, so you might be able to affect the outcome in like your vacation house area. And he was like, yeah, that's a possibility. And then there were those guys, I can't remember exactly who it was, but there were people that were charged with voting in a county that wasn't their primary residence in like eastern Idaho, that it was like, and I don't know, again, there was something about like, there was some ballot and there was something going on in the county, and people that didn't live there full time tried to vote and affect that. And they got caught because they were registered, like their primary residence was somewhere else. And of course, you can cross-reference that with like ITD and these other places where like, dude, they don't live in whatever county that is. They live over here per all these other documents. So it's kind of like, yeah, you can try to do that, and then you'll get charged with, voter fraud. Anyway, so that was like the closest thing that somebody brought. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I could see that being a thing. But then people who tried to do it got busted. So it was like, well, there you go.
There's no such thing as a perfect system, right? And as long as there's people out there willing to go to great lengths to try to game the system, you're always going to have someone that's trying to do something nefarious, right? But that's why we have, again, the system in place to catch people and prosecute them, right? That's an important part of what happens here in Idaho. We've had some prosecutions lately. We've had some people get arrested lately. We take it serious, right? So if you want to go mess around with elections, all right, there's consequences involved with it.
Trent, listen, man, I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you for walking me through all this stuff. Election's coming up. Thanks for making this place awesome. I'm going to take some cool pictures because it is, for anybody who hasn't been here, you can literally see from the back, from the entire back wall all the way to the parking lot, which is pretty wild.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, thanks for doing this, and we'll do it again.
Okay, thank you.